Good evening and welcome to Bent TV. I'm your host Malice, and tonight we've got 3 segments that I'm really looking forward to watching with you. First up, we have X-Ray Specs with Remy, who is talking to some vintage men and looking at the Matrix Guild. I wonder if anyone would take the red pill. Let's check it out now.
Hello, I'm Remy Scholten and this is X-Ray Specs, the segment where we take off our blinkers and look deeper into the issues. Now, when I was 34, a 19-year-old said, "Oh, no offence, but when I'm your age, I hope to be dead." But the thing is that not everyone's going to be James Dean, you know? You do grow older and life continues. So that's what we're going to be looking at over the next 4 installments. I've called it Community Elders, but I'm not sure if everyone likes that. I've got some very special guests with me today. From Vintage Men, I've got Gordon Wilson, and then from the Matrix Guild, I've got Jean Taylor and Barb Williams. Look, thank you very much all for coming along today. Now, I'm not going to ask you your ages because I think that is one of those things where people try and pin you down by a number. Is that right?
Could be. Well, I prefer to state my age.
Okay, what's your age?
My age is 68.
Yep.
I'm nearly 69.
And why do you prefer to state it?
Because all my life, as a woman, we were taught not to say our ages.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was not a good thing for women to say their ages. And when I became a feminist, I decided that that was a lot of nonsense. And so we're reclaiming all of those statements in life that we, as growing up, that we were taught not to do. And in fact, when I was in the Performing Older Women's Circus, one of our big things at the end, everybody had to say their names with a triumphant fist in the air, and that brought the house down. That was a very, very poignant and emotional and very dramatically strong statement to make.
Fantastic. Well, obviously you've got a very positive outlook there. What about the rest of you? What are some of the things that you like about getting older and growing up?
Oh, I like it because I don't have to worry about little things.
Like what?
Well, things that are happening day to day, you think, oh, well, forget about that. Just keep on living, have a great time.
But what about
You're just happier in your skin.
Yeah, that's
You think
right.
you can't fix everything, just do your best.
Well, this is like I'm only 43, but I care about other people less. Like it's like, okay, you have that view, it doesn't really affect me too much. Whereas I think when I was younger, I was so concerned about it. Now, do you think that things, or are there any differences growing older as an LGBTI person as opposed to a heterosexual person, do you think?
Well, for myself, I feel part of a very vibrant lesbian feminist community here in Melbourne, and I feel very fortunate to have such a community because it provides me with a supportive environment. I've got friends, we can see each other go out, and because I'm still politically active as a radical lesbian feminist, I see a lot of my friends in collective meetings when we're organising things like that. So yes, growing older and still having a community, I think, is absolutely crucial.
Cool. And obviously all 3 of you have got communities because you obviously are connected. Do you have friends who are in receiving help or support or in residential care?
No, not really.
Had one last year, an ex of mine was in care.
Yeah, and a friend of mine. It was the
Yes,
same lady.
that's right.
The same lady, yeah.
Same lady, yeah, friend of
Betty
mine.
Overall, well known.
Yes.
In fact, over the last several years, we've cared for a lot of members of our community, and that's another aspect of Melbourne radical lesbian feminism, is that we've been able to not only care for our friends, Betty was one, as they're dying, although she did go into care, but we have actually, in those lesbians who want to die at home, we've cared for them at home 24 hours, and organised funerals and all that sort of thing. And I think that's another, I see that as one of our roles as older lesbians and gay males, and you know, in the older LGBTIQ community.
But with Vintage Men, we have a similar system where we look after we make sure the older people, that if they're housebound or if they're in hospital, somebody goes and visits and just make sure that everything is going well for them at the time. Yeah.
Okay.
It helps.
Because quite often there's the expectation that it's the biological family that's going to help as people get older. Is that different for gays, lesbians, transgender, bisexual?
I'm sure it is for many people.
Yeah, I'm fortunate that I have a niece and a nephew. My sisters and brother are still alive. I have a niece and a nephew that have my power of attorney. They have children that I'm very fond of, and they're very fond of me, so that as I get older, I don't think I'm going to have too much worry about who's going to look after me.
you've had friends who have gone into support care. Do you, and I mean, I guess you don't always know when it's going to happen. Do you ever wonder about, will I need it? What will I do?
I'm hoping not to have to go in. I have a much younger partner who I hope will look after me.
So you were thinking when you started dating him?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Completely out of the blue. Yes, I did think of that. Yeah,
Well, I'm on my own, so. But I again hope that we can keep a good, positive attitude and stay well and die at home when we're ready.
That's right.
I hope.
So that's important, staying at home, isn't it?
Oh,
As opposed to going in. Because did Betty go into residential?
She had to, because she had major health issues.
Okay. And so what was it like for her being at residential and for you being with her at residential?
Well, she was pretty ill by then, but I feel as if that they were wonderful there. The woman in charge was terrific, was good to us, didn't mind all these dykes coming in to see Betty. But
and then
Betty didn't go and do things. Like there were things on. And if I'd been there, I thought I'd have gone and done them. Betty never did. Now, I think there was some element of fear that the residents might have found her odd or not.
Might not accept
anyway,
her.
I don't know.
I don't think that would have affected Betty. I just think she was quite content with her own company at the end.
Well,
because
she
the
always
day I
was,
went there,
really.
I was probably the only poof that went in.
Yeah.
You know, because I'd known Betty for 30-something years. And I just went across, and I was glad I went because Barb rang me and said that she was there, and I went and visited her, and I think she only lasted another week. But I was glad that I'd been able to go in and see her.
And I think that's what we've been doing with some of the service delivery places. The lesbian community, particularly, I remember with Jan Gladys, who was in a residential old person's home. We were allowed to come in all day, hours of the day and night, and it's expanded the consciousness of a lot of hospitals and places like that, with lesbians coming in droves and sitting around and taking
that was in
over
the country, so it was.
Yes, and see, there was a small country place, and they accepted all of that.
Yeah, look, later in our series we will be talking to a couple of experts about the changes that are coming up, because there's some big stuff. Yeah. How do you think that the LGBTI community treats its older members?
Well, I think we're invisible for a lot of it, and the ageism is in our community as much as out in the wider community.
And we do find a lot of us are getting old together, and there's not the young coming on, so whether we wouldn't have meant to put them off.
Well, I'm with young people a lot at Joy.
Yep.
And I find them interesting. They're terrific people. The young women and the young men that are down there, they treat me like I'm one of the family, you know. So it's great.
Jean, just to go a little bit further into, like, so when you say becoming invisible, is it just that people don't see you, or they just don't react to you, or?
Well, I think Barb's right. Often we don't mix so much with young people, but when we do, it's almost like we're in a different worlds, really, you know, and which is understandable, and especially now that we're getting older and older, and the young ones seem to be getting younger and younger. And we've got different interests. I can't go out to a disco anymore, you know, because they start at 10 o'clock at night, that sort of stuff. So there's less opportunity. But I can hear what you're saying, Gordon, that there are places where that could be possible.
Yeah. I do apologise. I do need to wrap us up. We're sort of out of time. Thank you all for coming in today. So next time that you see someone who's a little bit older, say hi. Next week we'll be back with a couple of experts who are going to tell us what's happening in aged care at the moment.
Well, I feel a lot more knowledgeable now. Thanks, Remy. We'll be back after these messages. Welcome back. You're watching Bent TV, and we've got another great segment for you now, and I'm not just saying that because I'm also in it. This is Squeal with Skye, who is intimidatingly tall as well as gorgeous, and we're talking about how we present ourselves to the world.
Y'all need to wash under y'all damn nuts.
Welcome, I'm Skye, and you're watching Squeal on Melbourne's Bent TV. On previous episodes, we've been debating about what is and what is not deemed acceptable when it comes to advertising within the confines of our community. But I'd like to get back to the personal and how we advertise ourselves within our community. What messages do we send out about our sexuality and personality in the way we represent ourselves? Malice, Sammi and Greer. Let's discuss. Sammi.
I think it's pretty obvious. I walk down the street, whether I have my partner, my girlfriend on my arm or not. You know, you look up dyke in the dictionary, there's a picture of me, you know, the short hair, the men's clothes, the tats. So, but I dress the way that I feel comfortable. I represent myself not looking for what a lesbian or a dyke, as I identify, looks like, but what I feel comfortable. And I think you have to wear it. You have to be out there and wear it and just go, this is me, and I really don't give a shit whether you like me or not.
So I guess we know there's been no conditioning from you, from, you know, obviously growing up and wearing men's clothes and doing boy things.
No.
No, it's just who you are, how you feel comfortable.
Yeah, it's just how I feel comfortable. I grew up not wanting, you know, I was given Barbies as a little girl. I spent most of the time with their clothes off. Who would have thought?
Okay, Greer.
I sort of, much the same as Sammi. I just dressed to feel comfortable with myself and the way I've sort of sensed my own sense of being is. And while I was very self-conscious, and I think when you go out dressed as male to female, it's much more obvious because our physical proportions are different. We are wearing makeup, probably a dress or a skirt, and you are going to stand out, so it's learning to overcome that, well, I don't care what other people think. And it does take a bit of time to teach yourself that, but once you learn to do that, you just get out and enjoy it, because you know that people really react to behaviour, not to the way you look.
And I guess just for our viewers watching, do you think that it's harder for a male to be female, or vice versa, for a female to become male, just in terms of appearance and attitude and what society
Well, I think
expects?
in terms of appearance it's probably harder for male to female because it's a much more obvious transformation without sort of playing on the word, whereas going the other way it's just dressing down in a sense, because you're seeing people like that every day, jeans, pants, shirts, you know, looking very almost uniform, as it were, down the shopping centre, and to turn up when you're standing clearly head and shoulders above the average female figure, and you know, bigger head, makeup, deeper voices in my case, you know, so you can't hide that.
Do you think one transition is deemed easier than another, so male to female or female to male?
No, they've both got their issues, and it really is a personal challenge and not a community challenge, the difficulty of your own transformation.
I guess I'm different because I'm bi, and so I kind of work across, you know, a few different kind of settings. And another difference about me is, strangely, I like to stand out. You might have guessed. Really? Yeah.
Wow.
So
I just noticed you were sitting on a cushion
I'm
too.
sitting on a cushion because...
Is that because I'm so
Because you're
tall?
enormous and I'm tiny. And 5'2.5", and you're
7'5".
Okay, yeah. So, but yeah, I like to turn heads, right? As opposed to Greer, you probably just want to, you know, walk down the street normally. But I like people to stare at me. I don't know, strange, right? So that's the difference for me.
Does that give you a rush though when you're out and people are actually looking at you?
It's funny. It's sometimes I love it, and I'm like, yeah, it's working. And sometimes I'm like, oh, stop. Like, there's the bad stare, you know, as you guys know, there's the bad stare. We don't like that, right? So that's when people really like do the double take or come back, you know, and just like really look at you for a long time.
What do you
right?
think they're looking at though?
It's a really good question, Skye. I don't know. Maybe they recognise me from Bent TV.
Maybe that's it.
That's what it is. Actually, no one has recognised me, so if you do see me in the street, I'd love you to come up and say hello. But I think with the bi thing, it's quite interesting because when we're out, like I can go to a straight club and somehow I tend to find bi people somehow. I don't know how that works. Maybe we put out a different scent. I don't know. But yeah, so as a bi person, I like to try and, like sometimes I'm in t-shirts, you know, but a lot of the time I like to also dress it up as well. Yeah. What about you?
Well, obviously being 7'5" has its advantages. You know what, I'm the same. I enjoy putting on this going out because of the attention that it does bring. You know, I have legs to heaven.
Yes, you do.
Yes, I do. You know what, it's also about being a persona of somebody who I am very much myself, whether I'm wearing drag or not. My beliefs and my opinions are my own.
Yeah.
But it just gives me, I guess, another dimension of who I am. And I think that's very important for all of us. You know, I was going to ask Sammi, when you were talking about dressing like a man, would you give yourself another dimension by perhaps putting on a dress and, you know, making a nice, wearing a, probably got a wig, lipstick and makeup? No, never?
No.
Just not appealing?
Have you never gone
Oh,
on a dress?
no. Yeah, no. Back sort of, you know, many moons ago, when, you know, you're sort of like trying to work out more about yourself and, you know, you're living the life that society expects you to live. So of course, you know, I had the dresses and, you know, wore the skirts to work and all that sort of stuff, but was never totally comfortable in it. It was only really in the last few years that I've really just gone, you know what? Really, I'm just going to go out and buy the clothes that I want to buy.
Yeah, you've got to feel comfortable, right?
Well, that's right. And I think, you know, you were talking about, you know, walking down the street and people looking at you or getting a double take. You know, I find that, you know, when I'm walking down the street with my partner and, you know, people will look at myself and my girlfriend on the street together with my son, and a lot more times you get people that just walk past and you don't get another look. And but every now and then you get that, really? And you know, but I think that we are starting to get to the point where we're moving forward a little bit more. And the great thing that I thought was amazing to see is we had all those fantastic support ads last year. The No to Homophobia, Beyond Blue did the left hand, and it was great to see in the No to Homophobia we had biphobia and transphobia included in that,
which is excellent.
Which was just amazing to see. And I think that then opens us up to the broader community.
Do you think that our gender and our diversity represents who we are for the straighter community?
I think it does. Yeah. I'm a human being.
Yeah, exactly.
We see that as ourselves, but it's then also being able to portray that. And because, you know, we've got 4 very strong personalities here, we can then comfortably go out and say that as well. So I think it's giving other people the confidence to go, you know what, you've just got to go and be who you are and just wear it.
That was such a huge topic. We'll discuss that next time when we're together. That's all we've got time for on Squeal this evening. I'd like to thank our guests, our panel, Sammi, Greer and Malice. And thank you at home for watching. Until we meet again, good night.
Well, I hope you found that discussion as interesting as I did. And if you'd like to give us some feedback on this or anything else you've seen on Bent, please email us on feedback@benttv.org.au or like us on Facebook by visiting facebook.com/BentTV. We'll be back soon. Welcome back to Bent TV's final segment for the evening. I'm absolutely loving the name of this segment. It's In the Thick of It with Sammi. And tonight, Sammi is featuring spoken word artist Daniel Witthaus. Let's take a look now.
Hey, you're on Bent TV. I'm Sammi Whitehead and I'm joined today with Daniel Witthaus. Welcome.
Thank you, Sammi.
How are you going?
Yeah, pretty good, thank you.
Very good. Now, for a great many years, over 16 years now, you've been an amazing advocate for the GLBTI community. What inspired you to get started and make it such an important works life?
Yeah, well, I think I was a young gay man in Geelong, and I just thought that I wanted to do something more than the psychology degree I was doing, and I thought, what are some ways in which I can help? And so I looked around through the then gay and lesbian media and found that there was a gay and lesbian youth support group in Geelong. So I marched in there up to the counter and I said, hi, I'd like to volunteer, and they kind of looked at me quite spooked. And what happened was they later said that they thought that I was just coming in to find myself a boyfriend, and I was saying that I was going to be a volunteer. But 6 months later I was still hanging around, and it was I think the stories of the young people that I was working with, all of them said, look, we're having a really hard time at school, and I just noticed this pattern, and I thought, gee, there's something in this. I really need to talk to more people and try and work out what to do about it. But at that stage, only at a local level.
But 16 years ago, you would have found the difference compared to what's available today, even within the media organisations. It would have been quite astounding for now to look back and say, there really wasn't much there. And to have an organisation in Geelong in a regional area that many years ago was pretty amazing.
It was actually the first local government to actually have a gay and lesbian youth support project, because back then it was gay and lesbian without all the other letters involved. And now, of course, we see lots of local governments, especially in Victoria, who have done a lot of work, and a lot of other youth organisations that are picking up. But believe me, at the time it was tough, and the people in the Youth Services Department were struggling with the community's perception about why they were doing this work in country Australia, if you can call Geelong country.
The thing is, I suppose, are the struggles that you would have seen that many years ago. And I mean, 16 years ago, we look at it now and it's not really that long ago, but in the history of our community, it is a very long time. The services that were available for youth would have been quite minimal.
Yeah, and even the resources around that. So there were things that were running on the smell of an oily rag. I know that happens still today.
Yeah.
But in terms of actual projects and workers, and even things like we now have the internet, which is only just kind of starting out back then. Just the awareness, the visibility, and on TV, even in the local media. I still remember in the first 2 years in Geelong, the project and the workers, which was myself and another worker, were accused on the front page of the Geelong Advertiser of being pedophiles, and that was seen to be okay to actually put that in the newspaper, whereas now I know a whole lot of different things about defamation and all the rest of it, but that was the kind of atmosphere, that was the kind of culture down there, and now I think you'd find it would be very different.
Well, it wouldn't have been all that unusual, because I mean, members of our community throughout the years, with people's lack of understanding about the reality of us, it wouldn't have been an unnatural thing for us to be accused of many things. I mean, we look at different religious organisations throughout the years. The LGBTI community have been blamed everything from Hurricane Katrina to a tsunami. So.
And think if we could put all that power to a good cause.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you've moved on from Geelong, and you were so inspired by the work you were doing there. What was your next step?
Yeah, look, I think I describe it to people as it was a series of fortunate accidents. So I then moved to Melbourne, and I had a chance to work across the state. So I had a chance to go out to more regional and rural areas, because people were saying, hey, you're working in schools, because I piloted a challenging homophobia program in an all-boys Catholic school, tried doing that in 1999. That was pretty tough, and people said, if you can do that there, you can pretty much do that anywhere. And so there were lots of calls for me to travel around to country areas, because not a lot of people were doing that work. So I had a chance to do that, and then it kind of led on from there, that all of a sudden someone said, you should write a book, and I said no, and they said you should, so I did, and yeah.
So the book that we're talking about that you wrote at the time was Beyond That So Gay.
Yes.
And that was all about challenging homophobia in Australian schools.
Yeah.
Did you write that book specifically for the educators and people involved with the schools, or was it more a hand guide for students?
Yeah, it was more for teachers and health professionals, because what I soon saw was that not only do you have the teachers in the schools, but you have so much support around schools. So it might be youth workers, it might be community workers, whoever they're going to be, they're actually wanting to do things in their schools, and they're the ones who, perhaps because they're sitting on the outside, would say there's a chance for us to actually do some challenging homophobia work, but we don't even know where to start. So that was really where the book came about. It was, what is everything that you would need to know to go from absolutely no awareness through to, just about everything you would need to know in the current educational climate that we've got. So what's the closest we can get to, educational utopia around challenging homophobia? And what people said was that they wanted stuff that was really practical. They didn't want lots of jargon, and they wanted lots of stories. So they wanted to be entertaining. They didn't want some kind of dry academic text that kind of lost them because they didn't necessarily have that academic background. So that's what I tried to do.
And that's where I think it comes, is a lot of people end up starting to read something like this and they lose interest, because the stories and the information they're reading doesn't feel real to them, and they don't feel that it associates with the life that they're leading or the challenges that's actually surrounding them. We've made some great progress in schools with things like the Safe Schools Coalition, Ros Ward, and Gay and Lesbian Health Victoria have done some amazing work. It must be very inspiring for you to see that the work that you're starting is also being taken on by so many other great organisations in our community.
Absolutely. I mean, even the work that I was doing back in 1999 and the work I've done since is because a whole bunch of people were doing work beforehand. So I'm building on, and then hopefully people will build on my work, and it kind of spreads. I think that the Safe Schools Coalition and others have been really good at those schools that are actually very ready to do this kind of work. So we know that those schools are out there. But my interest is, what about those other schools that aren't quite ready, that need some convincing, where there's a little bit of kind of tension and discomfort, or they're absolutely convinced that they're never going to do that work. They're the schools that I want to be working with, because those schools that are on site and on board are but the tip of the iceberg. So.
And I mean, that's the reality is we see the great work that's being done, but these are the schools that are actually, as you said, ready for this work. The challenges that we need to face are the schools that are not quite ready. They need to be exposed to what we're doing. Now, Daniel, where can we go to find out more information about all of the great stuff that you're involved with?
Sure. The simplest way would be to go to the Beyond That So Gay website. So if you put in www.beyondthatSoGay.com, that's so gay, all one word.com.au. You'll be able to find out about the book, the work that I've done around the country with schools, and pretty much, I think, simple ways to get involved. And there are some free resources too, so I'm not just plugging my book. There are free resources that people can have a look at as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today on Bent. I've been Sammi Whitehead. He's Daniel Witthaus. Thanks for joining us on Bent.
Hope you enjoyed the show, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again soon. In fact, same Bent time, same Bent channel next week. Don't forget that we are made up of volunteers and are always on the lookout for more helpers. And if you feel like you might like to give it a go behind the scenes or taking a turn on camera, why not drop by benttv.org.au to find out how to get involved. You can also catch up on old episodes while you're there. Good night.